Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at the wise words of Baroness Emma Nicholson, a woman who says that she has spent her entire life fighting for women's rights and is actually amazed at the backward steps that are going on now and how some of her colleagues fail to understand what a woman is. She says it's stupidity of the highest order. They're not stupid because they don't know what a woman is. They're stupid because they're not admitting that they do know what a woman is. So we'll have a look at this article, and she is quite right. And when you go through it, I think you'll probably agree with me that it's very disingenuous of them. But anyway, here we go. So she begins with, for grown men to pretend they don't know what a woman is when they have a wife and children is absurd. A glorious blast of common sense over the trans debate from Baroness Nicholson. When the then Lady Nicholson was made a life peer in 1997, she could hardly have imagined that 25 years down the line she would be considered a champion of women's rights by today's feminists, become a poster girl for parenting website Mumsnet and a treasured ally of gay campaigning groups. And yet, aged 80, that's where she finds herself, having become a very determined and vocal player in the pushback against what she considers to be the erosion of women's rights and free speech at the hands of the trans activists, the mentally ill. Baroness Nicholson of Winterbourne is her full title. It's such a mouthful, isn't it? You must call me Emma, she says when we meet. These days she's barely out of the news as one of the few politicians prepared to nail her colours to the mast and say that she does not think it's possible to change sex. Earlier this month, she demanded a sentence review after a male-born P was spared jail. Peter Selby pleaded guilty to having over 125,000 images of CP, but was shown leniency after court heard that the P identified as transgender and was fearful about managing in prison. And so basically said, oh, I'm transgender, don't send me to prison, and the court agreed. This is completely wrong. A monster like that should be doing hard time. Absolutely the worst, hardest of time. And so what does she make of those, such as Keir Starmer and Annalise Dodds, Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities, who tie themselves in knots when asked the question, what is a woman? I'm ashamed of them, she replies. For grown men to pretend they don't know what a woman is when they have a wife and children, who are they fooling? But it's even worse when it's a woman, because that's a shocking betrayal of one's own sex. Dressed in her immaculate silk two-piece suit and court shoes, Baroness Nicholson looks the picture of a well-to-do English lady, the daughter of Sir Godfrey Nicholson, a Conservative MP, and his wife, Lady Catherine, the daughter of the 27th Earl of Crawford. Emma has always been something of a trailblazer. Before going into politics, she worked as a computer programmer and systems analyst in the 1960s and 70s, at a time when most people hadn't even seen a computer. And to be honest, being a woman in that role in the 60s and 70s was in itself a major thing. It was she'd have been one of the very, very few. But you know, this is the woman. This is the measure of the woman. She's fought all these years. She rolls her eyes and shakes her head in exasperation when I ask how she might have reacted then if somebody had said in the future she would be considered controversial to believe in biological sex. Honestly, how can we be wasting good time and energy saying people are assigned sex at birth? Which of course they're not. They're not assigned sex at birth. That is their sex. It is at the moment of conception, really. But it's just obvious at the point of birth what their sex is. Nobody stands over the clipboard and goes, right, you're male or you're female. That doesn't happen. There are basic elements of life, and to deny them is lunacy. I was born profoundly deaf, and that is how I am. That's nature. Then nature unfortunately took a lot of my sight away when I was 9. I wasn't assigned deafness at birth. So-called gender-critical feminists, those who believe sex is biological and immutable, first came to Emma's attention when she saw news reports about a group of women who'd been attacked at Speaker's Corner in London's Hyde Park. As a politician's daughter and the first female in my family in politics, that woke me up immediately. Speaker's Corner is where everyone can go and say what they want, however dotty. She tracked down the women and invited them to meet with her at the House of Lords. They wrote back to say that the aggressive scenes at Hyde Park were typical of what was happening all over the country whenever they attempted to speak about women's issues. After she gave the women assurances about their safety, a large group met Emma at the Lords. And it goes on to explain there. Now, that is to show what she has done and leading into the attacks on freedom of speech by a group, the trans group. So we're going to take a look now at another news article today, which is this one. Women's rights activists are silenced by trans rights mob clad in black as Bristol anarchists tell feminists they are next after the Colston statue was toppled into the river. Women's rights activists claim they were silenced by masked trans rights group. In the video, people all in black are heard shouting out trans rights are human rights. Another video seemed to show the anarchists pushing police and women in Bristol. Another man was seen writing on the ground that after Colston, TERFs are next. So they're dressing in black and wearing masks. These are fascists. Fascists. There they are. There's the fascists. And they're denying the right of women. And that one, a woman, one presumes, denying women their rights. They're telling women, you have no freedom of speech, only we have freedom of speech. So, fascists. These people need to be classed as terrorists. Feminists said balaclava-clad trans rights activists silenced them today in Bristol as tensions between the two groups erupted again. The mob, dressed all in black, were heard screaming trans rights are human rights, while women's rights activists held a talk in honour of Father's Day in College Green. During the clash, the anarchists were seen pushing police and women, while another person held a sign saying TERFs, the name given to gender-critical women, should suck my D. Another man was seen right on the ground after Colston, TERFs are next. The clash comes after similar balaclava-clad group of trans activists manhandled a feminist next to a statue of a suffragette in Manchester earlier in the year. These people need to be rounded up and educated. Using a megaphone, a cowardly man who wants to remove the rights of women, also clad in black with his face covered because he's a coward and doesn't want his mummy to see what he's doing, was seen shouting at feminists in Bristol today. He screamed that they are the oppressors and are taking rights away from people, while the feminists struggle to be heard over the phone. Oh, the irony, we're taking the rights away from people, says the man taking the rights away from people. Now, these two stories go together, just goes to show what a world we're living in. What a dangerous place it is in this world to be a woman, and how dare you have an opinion, and worse, how dare you express an opinion. We need to fight back. We need to rally around the rights of women to exist and to express their opinions, and we need to clamp down on fascist little cowards like this. They're bullies and they're cowards. They are nothing. They are nobodies, and they need to be called out for the nothings and nobodies they are. Anyway, I shall come up and round off. The war continues. The war for equality, the war for the existence of women, the war against this dangerous, hate-filled lobby with their cowardly shock troops. They are nobodies, as I've said. But we will win eventually, because right is on our side. Anyway, shall round it there. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment. And until next time, dear friends, stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.